Once upon a time our planet belonged to huge reptiles, dinosaurs. For 160 million years, there was a tight evolutionary race between them, as no one wanted to become someone else's dinner. This race led to the fact that dinosaurs became real invincible monsters that no one could destroy anymore. No one but nothing. The threat came from outer space. A huge asteroid wiped the great reptiles off the face of the Earth. I'll tell you what happened next. Let's go. So you're looking at Earth a couple million years after the dinosaurs died out. The planet has long recovered from the collision with the asteroid. In those fateful days, almost all animals weighing more than 10 pounds were destroyed. The world went to small mammal creatures, which had previously lived in the shadow of the dinosaurs and tried to avoid their eyes in every possible way. At the expense of their small size, mammals needed much less food than dinosaurs, and also it was many times easier to hide from bad weather, and exactly these qualities helped mammals to survive the mass extinction. Now there was an evolutionary race between them in strength and speed, in order to dominate the food chain and ensure their survival. This race led to the fact that 30 million years after the extinction of the dinosaurs, a new monster, the Entelodont, or as it is also called the infernal boar, was born. This pig-like monster, the size of a hippopotamus, was one of the most ferocious animals ever to tread the earth. Entelodonts were very aggressive, and during the mating season they went crazy altogether. In the battles for the females, these animals inflicted terrible wounds on each other. Hellbenders were at the top of the food chain, had a deadly powerful jaw and terrible teeth designed to tear off large chunks of meat. It is thought that these monsters usually undercut their prey, calculated the distance and flung themselves at it, knocking it down and biting it, and also the Entelodont could take their prey away from other predators. For example, a hyenodon, which although successful as a hunter, could do nothing against a hellbender. It is much easier to take away food than to hunt and slaughter its prey itself. However, the infernal boar did not eat only meat. It was omnivorous and ate everything it could in a rapidly changing world, and this is the main reason why these monsters enjoyed success throughout their existence. For millions of years, the Entelodont was the king of beasts, walking across the wastelands of North America, fearing nothing, and devouring everything in its path, taking whatever prey it wished. Perhaps it was the most bloodthirsty beast on the planet. No one could rid the world of the domination of this monster, which would have lasted for millions of years if not for the planet Earth itself. The Miocene epoch began 25 million years ago, when the Earth became very cold, and North America, where the Entelodonts lived, began to change. The climate became dry and there were fewer and fewer forests. The landscape was a vast expanse of fields. When the amount of plant food decreased, the mass extinction began. To survive, animals had to walk huge distances in search of food. One by one, different species became extinct. Soon even the hyenodon began to disappear. And since the infernal boar often escaped its hunger by stealing food from these predators, its fate was in doubt. But evolution was not about to give up in the face of nature's onslaught, and turned the hell boar into a huge devil. The new version was about 2 meters tall. This gigantic size allowed the boar to cover a much greater distance than before. In order to find prey more often and kill larger animals, the boar retained the body of a tank and the legs of a sprinter. His strong jaws became even more formidable. Scientists call him Dinochus, which means horrible boar, so horrible that he earned himself the nickname Terminator Boar. He was a monster of monsters that had a primitive brain and lived on instinct alone. A real death machine. However, 5 million years later, new monstrous predators appeared in North America, the amphibians, or as they are also called, dog bears. Simply horrible creatures. Imagine an animal assembled from the most lethal parts of the lion, wolf, and the bear. That is exactly the kind of monster the dog bear was. It was not just a predator, it was a super predator, the equal of which had never been among mammals. Canine bears had reigned supreme for several million years. These beasts migrated from China and Mongolia across the Bering Strait into North America. They literally ate their way through and quickly drove out the last remaining hyenodonts, which literally had no regard for anything, making them finally extinct. The dog bear was a hard nut to crack. It was a very fast, hardy and strong predator. When the dog bear completely eliminated the hyenodonts from North America, they were left face to face with the only competitor, the Dinochus. However, unlike the primitive intelligence of the horrible boar, dog bears were much smarter. Their brains had a better developed cortex with more convolutions. It is believed that even one individual dog bear thanks to its cunning and much better maneuverability, could easily take the prey from the horrible boar and put it on the run. As a result, the dog bear began to gradually displace the dinohyethes, which also killed the climate was becoming more and more arid, so the number of prey decreased and feeding such a huge organism has become very difficult. As a result, the dino chews became completely extinct. All of the animals I have described so far lived mostly in North America and Eurasia, but none of them had ever set foot in South America, nor could I, for it was isolated by the ocean. There was a very different predator, the dinosaur, which had survived a collision with an asteroid and had managed to evolve into the huge and horrible Phororhacos bird. For tens of millions of years, these monsters terrorized terrestrial mammals in North America. This was the only time when the bird was the most formidable predator on the continent. The powerful and long legs of these monsters provided good running quality. Some scientists blame the Phororhacos for the complete extermination of the ungulates of the Noton ungulata. Phororhacos was a real fighting machine with very strong claws and a powerful fighting beak. The terrifying birds beat their prey to death with vertical strokes of their beak like an axe. They were notable for their intelligence and agility. No one could resist them. However, 5 million years ago a volcanic eruption created the Isthmus of Panama, connecting South and North America. Over time, the Phororhacos crossed it. And in the new land a huge number of new prey were waiting for them, but also very powerful competitors, such as wolves and the legendary 300-kilogram saber-toothed tigers Smilodon. These, in turn, invaded South America and squeezed the Phororhacos. Smilodons were the strongest and biggest cats of all time. These giants with incredible strength and armed with huge, sharp fangs dominated the territory of North and South America for about 2 million years. The power of their jaws and their ability to hunt made the saber-toothed tiger an extremely dangerous opponent. Smilodons hunted mastodons, bison, and young mammoths, and sometimes horses. Also their favorite delicacies were the so-called macroanea animals. Smilodons ambushed and attacked just as modern lionesses do. An interesting point is that when cats catch a prey, they did not immediately sink their fangs into it, so as not to break them, because they were quite fragile. Therefore, the predators first invited the victim to the ground and only when she was completely immobilized did they plunge their fangs into her, which were the exact instrument of murder. They simultaneously cut off the flow of blood and squeeze the trachea. One bite and the victim is dead. It was extremely important for Smilodons to kill and eat their prey quickly, for in those days there were many predators competing with them. For example, a large pack of wolves could easily take the food, or Phororhacos could snatch a piece of fall. Besides, there were more serious opponents. Take for example the massive American lion, a simply terrifying beast that was not inferior to the saber-toothed. Or for example the giant short-faced bear, the largest bear that ever lived and one of the largest mammalian predators ever to roam the earth. He could even scatter 3 Smilodons without difficulty at all. Then there were the giant sloths, the Megatherians. These monsters with huge claws were 6 meters tall and weighed more than an elephant. They could easily kill a saber-toothed tiger with a single blow. Beneath their skin were small bones that acted like chainmail. Generally speaking, at all times there were many species of giant sloths, and many of them were hunted by various predators, but not by Megatherians. The adults of these creatures were literally invincible. Sometimes Megatheria would dilute their diet with carrion, and if someone got in the way he was immediately killed. As you can see, daredevils were lucky to have saber-shaped fangs that allowed them to kill their prey quickly, before any competitors came running in. The saber-toothed tigers were very successful predators, and became extinct just 10,000 years ago when the world around them changed too much. The vast forests had turned into grass prairies, mammoths, giant sloths, and other grazing animals were becoming extinct, and the number of large animals to hunt was getting smaller and smaller. They were now found mainly in the open fields where it was very difficult to get close to their prey unnoticed, and so the predators began to disappear. In the same period, most of the so-called dire wolves became extinct, and later followed by the giant short-faced bears. To be honest, no one knows exactly why the Smilodon became extinct. However, this happened exactly in those years, when North and South America began to be inhabited by other terrible and simply invincible predators who were incredibly resourceful and cunning, humans. Some scientists believe that it was they who slaughtered the last saber-toothed tigers. Many even think that humans had a hand in the extinction of the mammoths, the largest herbivores of the time, although most scientists think that the role of humans in this case is overestimated and climate change was the decisive factor which caused a sharp decrease in the amount of food. 30,000 years ago the world went through an ice age, and living conditions were extremely harsh, even for the cold-adapted mammoths who were saved by their wool that grew longer and longer with the onset of winter. In spite of this protection, however, in some areas each year these giants had to make the miles-long journey south to the foot of the mountains to escape the cold wind. Small groups would clump together in huge herds and travel the distance to the best places together. True, there were other dangers, such as another species of human, the Neanderthal. Neanderthals were masters of the mammoth hunt. They used several tactics to kill their prey. For example, they could spy when the mammoths passed near a cliff, wait for nightfall, take torches, and start scaring the animals with fire, forcing them to retreat to the cliff, and since they could not see well in the dark, naturally unfortunate animals fell into a precipice. Thus in one hunt Neanderthals got a lot of meat. Wounded but still alive mammoths were finished off below. Similarly, even deer were hunted by Neanderthal ancestors 300,000 years before, and they often got a lot of their prey. But mammoth hunting was much more dangerous and often ended in death for many hunters, but they had to eat something, so the risk was justified. Ancient people used the carcasses of killed animals to their utmost. Nothing was lost. They ate the meat, hides from the cold, and the tusks could be used to make a hut. Neanderthals were excellent hunters, which allowed them to survive for hundreds of thousands of years. They were shorter than modern humans, although their muscle mass was 30% more than ours. They were real tough guys. We descended from a common ancestor about 500,000 to 700,000 years ago. Like many Ice Age animals, Neanderthals had large noses to keep the air warm before breathing, thus reducing the risk of catching a cold. These hunters stayed in the same valleys all year long, waiting out the harsh winter in caves. The most amazing thing is that at only 8 years of age they were already sexually active as they became sexually mature. And many girls had children at 9 to 10 years old, but this is not surprising since the average lifespan of Neanderthals was only 23 years. The last ice age really hit them hard and they started dying out. What was also killing them was that modern humans invaded their territory, and because of that some of the Neanderthals were killed, and the rest intermarried with our species, and as a result of intermarriage in a couple of thousand years the Neanderthal species has completely disappeared. However, our species began to flourish and quickly became dominant in the world. Soon no predator on the planet could stand up to humans anymore. For millions of years, the evolution of various creatures has emphasized the development of great speed and large sharp teeth, thinking that this would increase the chances of survival and dominance of the species. However, no matter how strong and ferocious animals nature created, her creation always died out due to various reasons, and only one creature, evolution, decided to bet on the development of intellect, and it was right. Intellect turned out to be many times more effective than a pile of muscles and huge jaws with big teeth. People with intelligence became practically invulnerable and quickly dominated the food chain. If other animals always had to adapt to the environment, then humans began to adapt the environment to themselves. High intelligence proved to be such an effective survival tool that humans even managed to survive a massive ice age, which many animals, including mammoths, were unable to do. Today, humanity may even have been able to repel the threat from space that killed the dinosaurs, but in about 200 years after the colonization of new planets, according to many futurists, people will no longer face any threat. After the death of the dinosaurs, the evolutionary race between mammals led to the emergence of creatures that not only no one, but this time nothing can destroy. That's all. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel.